Hey there, welcome. Today I wanted to talk about selflessness and no self. So it's kind of this beautiful link that I realized, and it's simple, it's not that profound or anything, but in Buddhism, there's this talk about anatta or no self. And in Bhakti Yoga, in Karma Yoga especially, there's this sense of selflessness, to do things without self, preservation, without self focus, and to just do things for others without reward, without need of trade and transaction or getting something. And in Buddhism, the no self is different. It's like all of our concepts and images and narratives and memories about who we are and who other people are as individuals, they're false. They're just stories, and they're empty of substance. And the true enlightenment, the true existence, has no self. There's no individual. It's just all non-dual, infinite, boundless consciousness. But there's like a link between these two, and I find the bridge between the two helps us become more selfless in an appropriate way. Because one thing with selflessness in the vein of karma yoga is that people still think they have a self, that they are a self, that their body is themselves, and they have to ignore it to be selfless to others. And there's a nobility or an honor to that. It's brave. It's rare these days, so there's an appreciation of the balancing act, but it's not the truth. And no self also isn't fully the truth, because we do exist. Maybe we're not our image, maybe we're not our story, maybe we're not our name or identity, maybe we're so much more than that, but we are, and that's indisputable. And so when we see no self as no selves, there's no individual selves in reality. It's all one permeating, fluid, fractal being beyond limitation. And we are just an awareness within that, a consciousness completely part of that. We also don't need to see our body as ourself, or that other people have bodies, but rather we can see things as organisms. We just like life is birthed and life goes, and we can just support that life, because it seems that supporting that life helps consciousness evolve. It seems like there's beings that get created within the infinite, and for some reason they forget their infinitude, and they attach to these bodies. They attach to just this limited perception, or maybe limited perceptions are born from the bodies, like emergent properties, but there's something that the body is part of, which is just existence, the universe. Regardless of what it is, what came first, we can just see all bodies and brains and, even false perceptions as things to love, just parts of this moment to appreciate. But that includes this body, that includes this brain, that includes this timeline, and it includes the timeline, brain, bodies, and feelings of all the entities around us as just one entity, as this one non-selves entity that our consciousness is completely one with. And I think this helps because I think patterns of no self become falsely detached and then conceptual, because I think they end up rejecting our own perception sometimes, which is just an obvious empirical fact that we are here. And I think it can become numb. It can become a little unresponsive in ways that might not actually be appropriate. And then selflessness is prone to dogma. It's prone to sacrifice that's unnecessary. It's prone to creating unhealthy patterns within our own this body and this brain mind, and then this can hurt other people. It can influence other people to do the same. When we're trying to help other people selflessly, we actually promote patterns that would harm them. If we want to help everyone by sacrificing ourselves, but then that influences other people to do that, then we kind of defeat our own purpose. Our own purpose is to help them, but we taught them to sacrifice themselves. But rather, if you just do one of the infinite patterns that helps all bodies, all cells, all living matter, all entities, that's just better. And we don't need to sacrifice the health and livelihood of this temporary vessel just as much as we shouldn't sacrifice the life of any other vessel. Just allow them to be and give them love. And this means we live a healthy, happy life that's balanced, that does things the right way, or as much as we can tell what the right way is. And then it also allows us to realize that we aren't this body. This is not ours. We borrow this state of matter and energy for a little while, and then we lose control of it. It goes back to infinity, to earth. And then we can also see how even the mind part wasn't our own. We were just given ideas. We were given language. We were given symbols. We were given values of what to focus on. I often talk about what do you focus on in your home? You probably focus on some objects, some centerpieces, the technology, the tools, the things that give value. But what's happening in the far corner of a room, we're not really paying attention to that most of the time. So how we pay attention and what we pay attention to, that's also just given to us. We didn't really choose that fully. That was just trained into our mind from an early age. So all aspects of our self and our identity and a conscious mind that can think and tell stories and talk and apply meaning, most of that is just given to us from the world. And this is a big part of the no self understanding in Buddhism. It's the thing you thought was a self is actually just this big melting pot, this big soup, this big collage that's ever changing, and nobody owns it. There's no owner, there's no propagator, there's no point of origin, there's no center, nobody's at fault. It's just cascading infinite information. And because of the potentiality of infinity, we've had the capacity to attach to some subsets of information and try and recreate them over and over and over again, to keep seeing things like that over and over again on repeat, because that's just part of the potentiality of infinity. There's infinite potential. So infinite potential to propagate and have all these beings think they're individual beings and attached to certain ways of seeing and doing and labeling. So that's the no self. All that is just, it's not like illusion, it's falsely diagnosed. We aren't actually a self. That's just patterns happening, and they come and they go, and it's what's happening for everybody, and there's no static individual. Which is also what happens when we go to sleep. It just dissipate back into the formless, and the information just bounces around without control. And this is just giving us a hint at what true reality is, because true reality isn't some individual self. It isn't localized to this body and brain. It is boundless, infinite. So if we can hone that no self and just understand it all as these constantly changing boundless patterns, and then also see that these living essences and beings and entities and cells and parts that can experience all sorts of suffering and all sorts of good and all sorts of neutral, I guess, then we can be selfless appropriately where we're not seeing every bubble of a body as some individual self, but we just see it all as patterns, including everything happening in this body, and we can love that, and we can give love to that, and we can uplift the things that bring all those patterns to coalesce into the true one great perfection of Shiva, Param Brahman. Thank you so much for watching. Om Sai Ram.